Hey YouTube, so in the description for this video you will find a link to copies of the pattern I used to build this costume. That is essentially why I'm making this video, is to provide anybody who's working on this costume a leg up. Patterns to use, and I'm going to kind of walk you through how I solved some of the problems on the costume. Um, Take any advice that seems good to you and ignore anything dumb I do. Please, I beg you. So this video is mostly going to talk about the pattern for the chest piece. There is going to be a video on the scale armor coming up soon. I know I've said that before. This time it's actually going to happen. So let me kind of walk you through sort of how I did what I did. Now this costume is currently only the, like torso up. There's still a lot of work I want to do on it, and there's still repairs I need to do from Comic-Con. Right now he's just kind of, pinned and magneted on a mannequin. But I'm going to make those improvements and build those extra things and do all those repairs at the same time after the DVD comes out, and I can get some, better screen grabs of the costume so I can make sure I've got everything as accurate as I could ever possibly feel like I want it to be. I will make a note as far as things that I would, I feel pretty confident that I got most things right. There are a couple things I know I got wrong, some of which were small intentional design choices, and some of them were everything from the waist down is too short. It's just too short. Maybe by a couple inches, possibly by as much as 30%. I need to go through and rework all that. The more I look at it, the more obvious it is, and the more I'm not angry at myself, I'm just disappointed. So, my costume here began as a pepakura file that was not mine. There'll be a link to that in the description too. It was honestly pretty good to work off of. It was built for Thor's Infinity War costume, whereas none of the specific details on the costume were even remotely relevant to this. What it provided was a really good superhero chest shape, very triangular. Anyway, and actually one of the things this was really good for is that all the weight of the costume sat on my hips as opposed to on my shoulders. So aside from temperature concerns, which, it was one of the more comfortable Thor costumes I've worn, and it gave a lot of room for the shoulders on those to kind of move around. So for reference, for anybody who hasn't worked with pepakura, it comes in at a certain size, and you can scale it up or down by 10% in the program you can use to print off these pepakura files. I had to scale it up by 10% 3 times. I'm 6'3" and I have a 32-inch waist. Figured I'd just give you those figures to see if they help you out at all. You may have to print some templates to make sure you get the right fit before you invest a lot of materials. And speaking of materials, that is the best segue that's ever going to occur in this video, and it's not going to happen again. I'm going to describe, what I made most of the costume out of. These metallic parts are plastic zinc backsplash tiles from a company called Facade. I've used them for a couple costumes now. They're actually, good, inexpensive plastic that looks like metal is a huge help as far as, costume making goes. They are just flat sheets. They don't curve on, you can't make a dome out of them real easy. You can only kind of curve them one way. And you're sort of limited to what metallic colors they have available, but, working around those, they're still pretty handy tools. Now, speaking of, not having the colors available, they don't have a gold. They have a polished nickel, which is halfway between silver and gold. It's what I used on my Age of Ultron costume. It's what I used on a Night Elf costume that almost no pictures exist of. I'm going to go back to that and fix it up someday. So I took that polished nickel and spray painted it gold. Now, one of the effects of that, not that it shows up on a cell phone camera real well, is any place the paint scrapes off, you can kind of see it there. You get that much more metallic polished nickel shining through. So this is a metallic paint job that actually looks better the more that it's weathered, which as far as costume making goes, that's pretty significant. That's not bad. I'm a little proud of that. You know, as proud as you can be of spray painting a piece of plastic. You know. Um, and as far as like the rivets on the costume, they're pretty inexpensive brads. Um, you know, there are two versions of this costume. There's a more armored version, and then there's a less armored version. In the less armored version, you know, these rivets stand out pretty well. In the more armored version, they're actually a lot more flush, but I kind of left them sticking out. Proud rivets. Um, I'm probably going to change that though. At the very least, I'll make them more flat. I kind of have some stuff on hand there. I have some more flat, fancy brads that I'm going to swap out when I go through and do repairs. I mean, speaking of the two different costumes, the patterns do reference what differences there are between the two costumes for whichever one you're wanting to build. I suspect most people will want to do the less armored one. It's the one that showed up in more of the movie. Um, but I'm not built to do that. And also, I wanted to do the scales again, and it's only the more armored costume that has the scale arms. Um, as far as like order of operation goes on the costume, a big part of it was just dictated by, um, you know, what pieces overlap over other pieces. You know, you kind of start with the most recessed thing you can and build forward from that. So I kind of started from the waist and worked up. I sort of did like this whole bottom section together, starting with the furthest back piece and, you know, layering things on top of it. I left this edge here, you know, actually I kind of started here. I left this edge untucked so I could glue things underneath it. Um, these, like the scale parts on the sides, are quilted fabric painted over with glossy blue fabric paint. Um, it doesn't look 100% the way I want it to look, but a little bit of sanding to give that texture a little bit more life is going to fix that right up. Um, yeah, most of the pattern I have is for the front because kind of once you hit the sides and the back, you can sort of fudge things a lot more. Um, for the sides, for the most part, you kind of have this one diagonal belt that you can adjust to whatever angle you need it to be. And then, I mean, if you want to worry about the back, more power to you. But considering how few people see it, I sort of just got it functional and called it good. I might not be the best example of accurate costume making, but yeah. I made the costume I wanted to make. So, starting from this bottom plate, and unfortunately how the costume's been stored has made this gap a lot more noticeable than what it was and what I want it to be. But I essentially cut an upside down smiley face, that's a super technical term, in the torso of the costume to give like an upper plate room to like slide over a lower plate to give you the ability to kind of bend at the waist, which as far as I can determine is the same way the film costume was constructed. And then, you know, working up, like I kind of, you know, compartmentalized it into this second plate here. And again, it was all just a matter of overlapping where you have this, you know, you have the base leather that goes over everything. And then you sort of have this big, almost, you know, Y-shaped piece of leather that goes over it. It's regular blue on the less armored, metallic blue on the regular leather. It's got flaps that kind of go up on the under edge of the pectoral, you know, the under boob. Which, another note, as far as changes I would go through to make the costume more accurate. If you use the pepakura file that I list, I would increase like the plate they have on the underside of the pec. Like I'd double how wide that is to, you know, give you that movie accurate superhero pecs. And I will probably do that when I fix up the costume at some point and, you know, have to recut pretty much all the pieces that intersect with that. So yeah, no, and then working out to this section here, just kind of layering what goes on top of everything else. You know, leaving these pieces that go over the pec until later, and then going through and doing like this upper pec section, you know, leaving this piece for last, because that, you know, is like the second to last piece you put on right before this, you know, big T-shaped piece, and that covers most of your seam there, which, you know, makes things a lot easier. Like you don't have to worry too much about how clean you get that seam. But yeah, then, you know, overlapping. The pattern on the peck is a little bit funny. Like it doesn't look like the shape it should be. But considering you have like all these strips that you are, getting essentially a 3D like spherical curve off of, um, I kind of had to finagle a couple things, but it ultimately turned out pretty well. Um, so in terms of like the other pieces, I don't think I mentioned that the blue and black vinyl is just blue and black vinyl, nothing fancy there. I might um, paint this with a layer of the same fabric paint I used on this this to kind of color match it and then sand that. I did a test piece on that. Looked pretty good. Added a lot of like life and texture to that. Just didn't have time before Comic-Con. There was a lot of crunch time to just get something wearable, and it ultimately turned out good. Even just being from the waist up, I didn't have any hassle. Um, the this chest detail was cut from the same like 8 or 9 inch diameter giant Christmas ornament I got from Menards one year. That I used for like the round metal details on previous Thor costumes. I just used the same scraps from that, and I just sort of cut a donut out of it. These six, I call them rondels because that's the only like armor piece I can find reference to. Um, I found this set of 3 clear Christmas ornaments on Amazon that each split in half. Um, and I specifically wanted clear things as opposed to metal things because, let me reach in here and find the button, because those are all packed full of LEDs. There's a total of 200 sound activated LEDs in the costume. So I didn't do anything with those particularly this year. I just kind of had the LEDs turned on and called it good. But in the future, I have so much room in this chest, it's not even funny. I could, throw I could have room for anything I could need in there. I could run a Hot Wheels track through there. I'm going to put a tiny Bluetooth speaker in there and have it playing ambient thunderstorm noises so that these lights, light up in time to that. And then I'm probably going to add some sound activated EL wire and do lightning effects, arcing between them. But that's going to be for next year. So that's going to turn out pretty well, I hope. I think I have covered just about everything as far as the costume goes. Ask any questions you want in the comments. I will try to respond to them as best I can. I'll keep you guys updated as I work on this. I may have to bounce to other projects. I need to compartmentalize my time in very specific ways. But yeah, no, I'll let you know when I get back. I'll let you know when I make pants for this costume and boots. Sometime after the DVDs come out. And yeah, no, I'll let you know on whatever's coming down the pipe next. Thanks for your time.